Be able to play it from. No, I don't want to do that. Well, what's up? What's up? What's up? We'll go over here. And then let me. It's off. We need love. Lift me up, hold me down, keep me close, safe and sound. Burning in a hopeless stream, help me to sleep. There we go. We got TikTok on now too, along with Instagram. Living life when you depart, keep me safe and sound. Oh, your live has ended because it contains music. Lame. All right, let's end the song and let's just start the live. That'll probably happen on TikTok too. We'll just start it here one more time. Live. Paste. A little hack when you go live on Instagram, you just make sure you copy your title. What's up, everybody? It's better we're starting again. This is the IMC Messengers program podcast. It's a podcast about the IMC Messengers program. And we're live on TikTok too, so you guys get to hear me podcast, free podcast. We got guys on Zoom, high-level guys that are making it all the way to this lifestyle. I'm looking at this guy, one of these guys that's on Zoom, and I'm like, man, where you were 2-3 years ago, that place in life, that geographical location, the people you were living with, daily schedule and habits, man, if you could call it that, and where you're at now, man, you're like a whole other matrix. You're like, it's like cosmic disclosure. You're like in another life. You know, that life was on one timeline. This is on a wholly different timeline. And that's what we offer. We're the number one in change. Number one group in change in the world. Whole wide world. Okay. And I'll put the link here also for the YouTubers. so you guys can join the Zoom. All right. And this is going to be recorded for the podcast, streaming to IMC TV. Shout out IMC TV, IMC Ambu, who runs that, Josiah, everybody who's involved. Let's click record and let's do this thing. That's probably right in the microphone. Cool. I do that a lot. I clap like right in the microphone. Welcome everyone to Enlightened Masculinity. I am Yogi Chris, Captain Yogi Chris, one of two Captain Chris's now. There's another Chris who's become Captain. Shout out to Captain Chris. So I'm Yogi Chris, Captain Yogi Chris. And I've been Yogi Chris for a while now, maybe about 8 years I've been referred to as that. It's almost like an alter ego. And you do well to play with having an alter ego in life. This is Enlightened Masculinity podcast, available on all the platforms, Apple, Podbean, Spotify, whatever, Podbean. Leave a review, follow. It's a red pill show about masculinity and the IMC Nation movement. It's episode like 320 or so that we've posted. You know, there's many episodes not posted, and because they're just too edgy, you know. We get blocked and censored and shit, and sometimes just too much value. You know, this is actual value. And that's so dope. It's so dope to have value that's mindset and a skill set that just the way you talk with people is valuable. The way, just don't think of it as like interrogation, but the way you ask questions, the way you lead conversations and guide it. And man, the places you can go, because when you can gain the cooperation or influence, man, doors open. You move places, you go you actually, and in this world it is all, you know, bells and whistles and lights and distractions, but you're still doing it. You can't escape that. So what are you going to do? Go live in a cave and not play the game? Or are you going to play the game? And then how are you going to play the game? Are you going to be a minimalist? There's still going to be interactions. Are you going to be a maximalist? That we should start a movement, because they have minimalist movement. We should have maximalist movement. We're going for everything. That's what they call materialism. And so no matter where you're at in the spectrum of, you know, minimalist, maximalist, anywhere in between, you're still in there. You're not the game. You're not the achievements. You're not the objects you buy that come and go. You're not even your name. You're not that name. Whatever your full name is, your social security number, your ID, your address, who your parents were, who your kids are, who your siblings are, what your job is, none of those things are you. So where are you? You're behind it. You're behind it all. And so in this game of life, you know, I'm here as a spokesman for IMC Nation, captain of IMC Nation, live with the founder of IMC Nation, AZD, who's spearheading this movement, and we're all taking and reflecting it out. And that's what I'm doing. And it's amazing to have value as a communicator with a mindset that how freeing that is for people. And after 8 years, I feel as if I have almost come to take it for granted, because I've put myself in this situation where I'm living with the founder, I'm running the movement, I'm always involved with IMC people. I'm streaming to an IMC AZD_IMC TikTok right now. And I thought about streaming to my IMC Instagram account, but I decided to stream to my main account, PhD Yogi Chris, which is still all IMC related. Like you can't be on there if you're not like IMC, because I've already messaged all of you and you all got to be with it. Which is amazing to think, because it's like, with what? Is with mindset improvement, skill, communication skill improvement, lifestyle improvement. Why would people not be with it? They're so comfortable in their normal life. They don't see something more for them, or what they see is really just so caught up and wound up in the devil's agenda, in his priorities, in a world that just like has swallowed people's minds and, you know, got them all spinning around weird goals and objectives that they're still lost in the mix. Man. and they're seeking a spiritual experience, and they're seeking fulfilling relationship, and they're seeking whatever their soul is seeking, and they're on their own journey. And we got to let them go and move forward and just deal with the people that contribute to what we're doing. And that doesn't mean that we don't have people that are not antagonistic, because that shows us I have learned from AZD that no matter what the world gives me, it can improve my character. That if it disagrees with me and resists me, how I handle that. If it agrees with me, how I handle that. If it doesn't cooperate with me, what do I do with that? That the person resists me and I'll show my strength, or the person agrees with me and I'll validate my strength. Or it may break my strength, or I may not know how to handle it. And then we keep going. And being part of the group reflects to us some accountability. It's much more difficult to go it alone, but around people that will reflect, that's where we get the base operation. Now, so like I was talking to the Zoom user before, the stream, and it's like where your life is at now. And now you're living, man. I was talking to one of your base mates the other day, and people that are online or on podcasts and don't know what I'm talking about. Guys in IMC Nation live together. We have 5 bases and counting. And that's a whole different lifestyle. It's not like, Jack and John are living in mom and dad's basement. They got their own place. They're doing their own thing with these young men, who pursue pickup or pursue their financial ambitions. And of course, men, you can't just put 2 guys together. So are they going to have a common lifestyle? Or it would make sense for a bunch of fighters to get together. You'd think that they'd fight, and they might, but it would make sense if guys that were prioritizing training, combat arts, it would make sense for them to live together. It would make sense for a bunch of real estate people to live together. They'd have a common lifestyle, common schedule. It would make sense for a lot of things, a lot of Black culture. They were hip hop and, just did that stuff. And that's what we have. We have a base like that. And that's amazing. And so one of the Zoom users lives in a base. And I was talking to one of your base mates yesterday. And I was like, man, I didn't have what you have when I was coming up in IMC. And it sounds so old time to be like 8 years ago. Listen, Sonny, 8 years ago, I didn't have the option. And it's like, where were you 3 years ago? Who were you living with? What were you doing? And so most people, like the people that are on live, like TikTok or probably the YouTube, and haven't gotten too involved, they're stuck where they are, and they maybe see some things for themselves, and they're gonna move. They're gonna migrate through life. It's just, man, it's gonna be so in a rut. They're in a groove. They're in a bunch of grooves, and they're just gonna follow that groove. And we change because we see different perspectives. We surrender to the group, and we take. We're very selfish. We take what is useful for us. But then over time, the people that are just takers, they leave. The people that can't surrender, they don't even vibe with. But the people that stick around, they give and take and give and take. So they give their story and their perspective, and we all learn from it, and we all gain advantage from it. And then the next guy goes, and the next guy, and it's amazing because everybody that's out there lone wolfing it is just falling behind on the evolution curve. And we're ahead of it. We're surfing the front end of it. Surfing forward on the evolution curve of communication, relationships, mindset, and understanding. That's why it's value. Just talking to you, and each response makes more and more obvious the distance between you and them. And that distance is what you need for energy to flow. Potential energy is in the distance. It's in the difference, not in the sameness. But sometimes it's too much. It could catapult somebody forward too fast and they break. Your value is too big. Like if you were doing pickup and she already sees you so much higher value, and then you neg her, it crushes her. So I'm here to talk about the Messengers program, because on up this evolution curve, how do you gain this evolution? I mean, yeah, it's showing up and listening to me talk. I'm reflecting some of the teachings, but where is that going to lead you to? You're so far back on the yellow brick road. If you're watching my live streams on Instagram and TikTok right now, or YouTube, IMC TV YouTube, and you're not part of Midday Gospel, just a daily morning meeting, $97 a month, 6 days a week, 10 a.m. Pacific, every day, except for that 7th day, for the last 4 or 5 years. That consistency every day, no holidays, no nothing else. And that mastermind, there's just so many testimonies of it. It's ridiculous. There's free invite lectures. You come and see. Because I don't see anybody from any other groups changing. All the people that when 8 or 9 years ago, I got into this self-development and that kind of movement, and I made connections. I made friends off this forum or that forum or whatever. And those guys stalemated. Like you would think one of them would have changed. Even the best, the coaches I haven't seen them got better. I see them kind of go down. It seems boring. It's like, man, 8 years later, you were world famous, and that's the size and strength of your movement right now. That's what you did with that. That's all the top coaches from the past. Weak. We just keep going up. And the standards keep going up. So it's not about 12,000 followers. It's about 12 really good followers. That created the most powerful movement that's ever lived on this earth, was just one spearhead and 12 followers. And so these 12 are the messengers. When you join Midday Gospel, you come up and you get inspired. You see all of the back and forth. You start seeing clearly. You get immersed in the language of this dialogue between hundreds of philosophers that are on this program, and about 40 to 50 show up every day because they're committed, and it also fits their schedule. I mean, people are around the world, so it's, but really the people around the world, if I were around the world, I would change my schedule completely around. It was like one of the guys that lived at Vegas I was talking to, and struggling with his schedule because he's promoting until like 5, 6 a.m. and then, flipping it around, and he's not getting the right rest when you're sleeping from like 6 to 2 p.m. It's not the same kind of rest. You're supposed to sleep at night. It was like, man, whatever. You got to come to base one, visit, shift your schedule to our schedule where you're waking up at 6 a.m. It's no different than just moving. It would be like visiting Europe, and you change your schedule just in a day or two, you just flip it around. And then you learn to tighten it up and appreciate yourself, and then go back to where you were, go back on that schedule, but you catch a vibe and you mix it in with what you're doing. So people on Midday Gospel, they come and they see this dialogue between so many men about this subject of really relationships, because women are what have men by the balls. And it's everywhere. The way women dress, how they walk down the street, how they walk with their man, talk with their man, like if you could even call it that, how they run children. And of course, the society, like how that's trickled into, how schools are run and everything, sports are run. It's just ridiculous. And then how the education top down is training the kids. We all know this. But women, that is the infection of the world. Is it women? No, it's the attitude and the behaviors of women and men that reflect and allow that. Because the reason there was patriarchy in the past is because men are stronger and they win. And you leave them to their own devices without a bunch of cultural programming and brainwashing about how to be. And men would take over because they're stronger and smarter and faster and willing to use more lethal force and sacrifice it all. Because a man who loses his arm in battle is still going to mate with a bunch of pretty women because he's a hero. But a woman who loses her arm, nobody wants to mate with her as much. So he's a hero. That's just what it is. He's willing to sacrifice himself. And so men would take over, but they're held back by, it's like the elephant that as a baby was chained with a chain. And then as an adult, you just have to tie a string around it and it won't even break it because it's held back in its mind. So as you join the Midday Gospel and you hear and see this dialogue, and you'll get inspired, and you're like, man, you're too weak. You'll notice. Any man, myself, 8 years ago, oh man, I wish the guys online could have seen me and how I talked and how I was 8 years ago. Bro. The thing is, this even podcast, there were no IMC guys podcasting. There was a little bit like Aikido and AZD would do some streams. That could count as a podcast. It wasn't a public thing, but there was, they didn't use Zoom. Zoom wasn't around at the time. It was like Tiny Chat or something. And there was some dialogue. Yeah, it was mostly written questions and comments, actually. I don't think it was like Zoom is a better video conferencing thing than Tiny Chat or Ustream. It wasn't as convenient as Zoom. Zoom is better. So that's amazing. I am a living, walking, breathing, talking testimony. I don't know. I should look up the grammar. When is best to use one or the other? Because I've always thought that. Testament, testimony. I'm a living, breathing, walking, talking testimony of change, of who I was, how I portrayed myself, and my trajectory in life. It's just so different. It was like a comet going around a star at a certain orbit, and then the IMC philosophy taught by AZD came in like a tractor beam and like pulled me into a whole different orbit, really into a whole different solar system. I was orbiting a little star, and it pulled me into like a galactic orbit. And now I'm orbiting like a much bigger idea field and a lot more possibilities. So as guys want to contribute the clarity and contribute the masculinity, contribute some genuine stories, some real stories to the discussion of Midday Gospel, they need to come up in awareness and sharpness and strength. That's the origins process. Ideally, you come in person, but it's an online training program. It's the intermediate level. It's what happens after. This is funny. This is a person named Notification does this thing on TikTok. It's really funny. I'm getting it now. So I'm going to test it, because right now it says if live video doesn't end in 5 minutes, your TikTok will be deleted, which is like 24,000 people on the TikTok. But this happened before, and I'm noticing something, and I don't want to bore you all with the explanation now, but just so you know, over the next 5 minutes, I'm gambling with supposedly losing my TikTok account. So that's funny. I hope it happens, honestly, so that I can let it go. I'll just start it better next time. Let's see, where was I? Yeah, galactic orbit. That's right, divine. Origins process. So you learn the roots of it all, because it makes more sense. Like if you deliver a root to your story, somebody's like, what do you do? And you're like, well, I spread philosophy. They may ask some questions about that, but if it's like, what do you do? And then you're like, man, I would have never thought that I would be doing what I do now, because I thought I was going to, and then you go into like your roots of how you came to be spreading philosophy, and it's a root. And so it makes everything stronger, and you get the rest, and you even pay attention to the rest differently. You listen differently. If you're looking for something that annoys you in your environment, you'll find it. And if you're looking for something that you really admire in your environment, you find it. And if you're listening for something that annoys you, you'll find it. And if you listen for something that you get it. So what you're looking or listening for it just changes your perceptions of what you perceive. It doesn't change the environment. So if you listen to the AZD stuff and you know the origins, then you hear it differently. But if you don't know the origins, then it just goes over your head, goes right through you. And so that's why it's required before you do the advanced. At the advanced, you learn some incredible tech. It's not even really to discuss so much right now. It's just that's why it's advanced, and it's why it's behind an exclusivity wall where you got to do origins first. Above that is business mentorship. Ironically, anybody could do business mentorship. It's ironic because you can't just do the advanced camp, which is called Chosen right now. And I say right now because this is a recording that gets posted publicly on the podcast and people will listen to it. So, there's a date to everything, whatever. Right now, advanced training is called Chosen. It would be very interesting, somebody listening through all hundreds of podcasts, the evolution, man. I'm documenting it. However, it would be weird if they haven't signed up for something by now, if they were doing that. That would be actually weird. They're a weirdo. So everybody on the recordings, click whatever's in the bio, join the newsletter, join up, find me on Instagram, get involved. You're not evolving nearly as much as you would. And you obviously value this stuff, but what's holding you back? I don't even know. After advanced business mentorship, which is incredible because he wants everybody to make that money so that he can do messengers. Messengers is 20 grand. There's a 20 grand training here. And there's 5 guys doing it this month. And I'm confident that there'll be more guys doing it next month. And there's already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. there were already 10 messengers from before. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are not around. And of the rest, one of the remaining is like barely around, like not really. And then 2 of the others, I'm one of them, 2 of the others I live with. And one of the others is repeating as messengers, actually, this next go around, including myself. So there's 3 new messengers. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 3 new ones. There's 8 messengers. Right? Yeah. No. Something like that. 7 or 8. 7 or 8 messengers right now. And 12 is a nice number. Total, including the prior ones. It's Fernando, Sultan, myself, BC, a little bit Jordan Susi, but not really. And then Kingpin, Powerhouse, and Guerrero. 7 right now. AZD and 7 messengers. Now there's a bunch of officers also that are living in bases and or not living in bases, have rank, have prestige, have leadership and what have you. But there's a different level that's being created with the ministry, the ministers. Messengers could also be called ministers. There's something very interesting that will happen by the end. We're only 5 classes in, and it's already tearing me up inside. It's doing this, having this interesting effect to let go of shells and shells of layers, like that doll that breaks apart into another doll kind of thing. I'm not a doll, but it's almost like energy ridges, like L. Ron Hubbard describes. He's like, and it's not that. I don't know what it is. And it has to do with my character and how content I've been with my character misbehaving at a deep level, a deep, subtle, chronic level that everyone around me has actually come to accept because it's me, but it's not really me. Just like you're not your name, you're not your blah, 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 blah. It's a trip. So that's great because it's the letting go of the old, it's the reshaping your character that allows a person like teleportation, alien tech to shift out of their reality into a new matrix of experience. Rather than the normie, regular kind of trial and error, circuitous, just kind of one step at a time, going not really with any top-down altitude perspective of where they're going in life. This is like, really, it's bigger than just getting a bigger perspective on life. I don't know, that kind of makes sense. Hold on, has it been 5 minutes? It has, it's been 6 minutes. So I knew it, that's a fake warning, I knew it. It's a person whose account handle is literally notification. That's their name on TikTok. And they've been putting this warning with warning triangles and colors and whatever, saying your video will end in 5 minutes if you don't, or your TikTok will be deleted permanently if you don't end it. It's a prankster. What a loser. A loser. I mean, I don't know what a person could possibly gain from that. Like tangibly. Obviously, they get a kick out of it, but like tangibly, your emotions aside, minus how you feel, there's no gain, only drain from that. Dude, I'm rhyming all day here. Okay. Messengers. So I advocate everybody do messengers. Do whatever you can. There's a lot one can do to really dig deep. If you were to have to survive in the jungle, like survive, man, if you had to fight for your life, really, like one of you on Zoom right now, I'm looking at you and I'm like, man, he knows I'm talking about him too. And it's like, man, if you were backed into a corner, I wonder how ferocious you would be. Or, I idealize a lot, especially with my brothers. I'm like, dude, he'd be so ferocious. He'd fucking rip their throat out, kick him on the ground, and then get the fuck out of there because he's smart too. But I don't know. Some guys are more tested, some guys are less tested, and you got to dig deep. That's how you find what you're made of. Because I had made the decision for myself when I did messengers which was called Tabiat, but it was Messengers. That my life, or this fake life, which is pretty much everything to deal with this identity, my name and everything that's like impermanent, not me, which is, it's maybe a difficult concept. It's just like, it's everything is fake, because me, I'm like a non-entity entity. I'm like a 0 point moving through life. That's sometimes forget I'm a 0 point. I just kind of attach myself to my identity somewhat and forget that, hey man, you're free. You could just go be a homeless guy in India if you wanted to. You just let it all go. And the freedom of doing that, but not abandoning what I got going on, bringing that freedom to just like let go of it all, but keep playing the game you're playing. That's worth leveraging all the it's worth leveraging all of the impermanent for permanent change. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? So all of that stuff, reputation, status, and, you know, I'm not saying drop your ethics. I'm saying that, you know, it might be looked down upon you to sell everything you own and, you know, borrow from everyone you know, and loan out everything you can, like, you know, take out that credit. If I can do everything you can to pay 20 grand to do the messengers, if you're capable of coming up with that 20 grand, then you probably have enough value in life to make use of the training. It's an interesting situation. If you can't come up with the money, then you might not have enough influence to make use of the training. But now I think everybody can dig really, really deep and find this in them. They have in their sphere of influence that around them. And that was, for me, worth it at the time, and still is. And for me and 6 other guys that have stuck around. It's more than that. It's like 12 other guys, but a bunch didn't stick around. And that's great. That's great, because that's where the standards keep going up. And that's why the numbers don't go exponential, because other companies, their standards go down, and that's how they try to grow. It's lame. It's needy. Okay, so that's been great. That's you know, the Messengers tech. It continues ongoing. If you're interested in that, contact me. Let's see if we have any comments, questions, is you know, formulated for the next minute while I wrap it up, and maybe there's something. Haters. Internet is filled with weirdos. Yep. Comfort is a mother. Yep. People on, let's see if there's any social media comments. Ja is really enjoying this. Lots of comments. What's up? What do we have over here? Cool. Yes, sir. It's amazing how long life is compared to the struggles. The struggles seem to expand in our mind, like they get stretched out, like they are longer, like they're permanent. We start to feel like that, but that's just not what it is. Step by step, piece by piece, day by day, a month later, 6 months later, a year later, you find yourself, whoa, I'm not in the same position. 5 years later, you're like, whoa, dude. And you're trying to tell everybody, dude, in 8 years, it can change so much. You don't have to be like that. And I'll bet 8 years from now, I'll look back on myself right now, and it'll not be any different than that. People are not so used to change. They've maybe changed once or twice in their life, and nobody's pointed it out to them that, hey, you did that. Like, I changed when I became a wrestler. I was a dork. I still am in many ways. And I never let go of all of that nerdiness, whatever, but I was frail. I was weak, skinny, not notably tough, and definitely carried myself and walked around like a dork. But over the next 3 or 4 years, I got muscular. I got tough. I carried myself knowing. I had a knowingness about my toughness. And it's amazing how much your character can change. And I would want that for everybody in IMC that can do that. Your leadership in the world. I mean, this is nothing short of divine. Like, we're doing it. We have an antidote for that infection. The infection of toxic femininity, of weak masculinity, which is toxic masculinity. That's just suffocating the planet. We're the only ones with that antidote. We're number 1 in change. So I recommend go to imcbase1.com. Check it all out. Thanks to everybody that showed up live. This is dope. IMC TV and all of the accounts. Get involved. There's some links somewhere, you know, on the TikTok. There's the Instagram link. That's my Instagram account, so we can exchange better. And let's do it, man. It's Saturday night right now in San Jose. We're going out tonight. So now it's time to change state, clean up, smell good, look good, be social. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.